From a long time ago, Darth Sion knew suffering in all its forms. As a warrior of the Sith Empire during the Great Sith War of Exile, he hurled himself against the Jedi with insatiable fury, seeking death in battle. However, instead of finding rest, he discovered something else. Every wound he received, every broken bone, every pain that pierced him became a reminder of his own resilience. Sion did not fall, did not die. Over time, he realized he could hold his shattered body together through the sheer power of the dark side. Each time he was struck down, he rose again, his flesh torn, but his will stronger. The end of the Great Sith War brought the collapse of Exarchun's empire and the extermination of many of his followers. Sion, however, survived. His hatred and his connection to the dark side kept him standing while others perished. He became an outcast, a remnant of an era that had ended. His body was a living nightmare, an anatomical horror that defied all understanding. Every inch of his skin seemed torn and reconstructed. His flesh was cracked, with deep fissures revealing fragments of bone and muscle. He was not human in the traditional sense, but a construct of pain held together by the dark side. He did not participate in the Mandalorian Wars or the subsequent war of Revan and Malak, but he watched as the galaxy tore itself apart once more. The Jedi, once powerful, were divided when Revan led many of their warriors to war. The Order never fully recovered from those losses. When the Jedi Civil War came to an end, the galaxy lay in ruins. Darth Malak had been destroyed, and Revan was responsible for it. The former Dark Lord had been redeemed. But the chaos was not over. With Malak's death and the fall of the Sith Academy on Korriban, the remaining followers of the dark side turned on each other. The Sith Civil War began, a ruthless struggle where the remnants of the Dark Lords and their apprentices betrayed one another for power. Amid this chaos, a new power emerged, the Sith Triumvirate. From the shadows, three figures rose above the ruins of the fallen Sith Empire. Darth Nihilus, a being consumed by his insatiable hunger for the Force. Darth Traya, an enigmatic master of manipulation and betrayal. And Darth Sion himself, the Lord of Pain. Together, they established their base at the Trios Academy on the dark world of Malachor V, a planet scarred by the destruction and suffering of the Mandalorian Wars. From there, the Triumvirate plotted their sole objective, the total extermination of the Jedi. This was not a conventional war. It was not an open confrontation like those waged by Exarchun or Darth Malak. The Triumvirate operated from the shadows, eliminating the Jedi one by one. They used Sith assassins to hunt down and annihilate the survivors of the Order. They provoked local conflicts on key planets, weakening the Republic. Sion in particular enjoyed hunting the Jedi personally. For him, it was not just a mission, but a test of his own immortality. Each battle was a reaffirmation of his existence, a reminder that suffering strengthened him rather than weakened him. However, the Triumvirate itself was doomed by its very nature. Sion despised Traya's weakness and grew impatient with her philosophical teachings. He did not understand her constant manipulation, her insistence that power was not just brute strength, but also knowledge and strategy. Alongside Nihilus, he conspired to betray her. When the time came, both Sith inflicted one of the worst punishments a Force-sensitive being could suffer. They stripped her of her connection to the Force. Now, only two remained: Sion, the immortal warrior, and Nihilus, the devourer of the Force. But even in their triumph, the Triumvirate was not a stable alliance. Sion saw Nihilus as an aberration, a being whose hunger made him less a Sith and more a plague. Yet, the war against the Jedi continued. Slowly, the Order crumbled. It became an echo of what it once was, its members scattered, hunted, and annihilated. And yet, there was an anomaly, an exiled Jedi, a woman who had survived the Purge. Sion knew her, for he had sensed her presence in the Force. He knew there was something about her, something he could not comprehend. And as his crusade against the Jedi continued, his attention turned inexorably toward her. Destiny still had one final battle in store for him, one that would define the galaxy's future and test his own belief in the immortality of pain. When news of her return reached his ears, there was no doubt. Mitra, the last Jedi, had to be destroyed. Sion gathered his assassins and boarded his ship to intercept Mitra Surik on the Harbinger. But his plan was simple: hunt her, break her, and finally consume the last hope of the Jedi. However, he was not the only one on her trail. Kreia, his former master, was also searching for her. The Republic ship, the Harbinger, had orders to retrieve Mitra, who had emerged from exile. However, a distress call. The ship sailed through the void of space, fulfilling its mission to transport Mitra back to the Republic. Reports of her possible survival had drawn the attention of those who still sought the extermination of her order. Darth Sion knew of her presence and would not let her escape. From the darkness, his Sith ship stalked. His assassins, invisible and deadly, awaited the order. Yet, a direct attack was not his strategy this time. A distress signal was sent, a trap woven with precision. The call was received by the Harbinger, whose captain, bound by Republic protocol, ordered an investigation. The crew, detecting a seemingly damaged and unresponsive ship, decided to dock for inspection. The Harbinger's hull connected with the derelict vessel, and a boarding team entered. They found bodies strewn across the corridors, the stench of death permeating the air. At the end of their exploration, they discovered something unexpected: the body of a man, utterly damaged, covered in scars, clearly the corpse of a dead man. His skin bore wounds that should have been fatal, but there was no fresh blood. To the crew, it was just another corpse. Following medical protocols, they took the body to the Harbinger's infirmary. They decided to place it in a kolto tank, hoping to stabilize what remained of him. Meanwhile, Sion's assassins moved unseen. They infiltrated the ship, slipping between shadows, eliminating the crew. Those still breathing did not realize the danger looming over them. Then, in the dim light of the kolto tank, Sion awoke. Chaos and destruction erupted aboard the ship. Yet, his target was still not in his grasp. Mitra Surik remained on the ship, but another familiar presence protected her: Kreia. Sion's former master had arrived first, and with her, the Jedi's only chance of escape. Sion felt the disturbance. Additionally, an HK-50 Jedi Hunter had Surik in its sights. The droid even rendered her unconscious, but Kreia had been faster. She rescued Surik, and with the help of T-3M4, Revan's loyal droid, they escaped aboard the Ebon Hawk. The ship fled, and though Sion tried to prevent its escape, he could not stop it from jumping to hyperspace. Frustrated, he took control of the Harbinger and pursued his prey to Peragus. After a journey, he managed to dock the ghostly Harbinger at the mining facility. His assassins infiltrated the station, stalking and waiting. There would be no escape this time. It was during this time that Surik and Kreia boarded the Harbinger, seeking a way out, where Sion found them. Kreia intervened, giving the Exile a chance to escape. He looked at her with disdain. Surprised, she still breathed. He knew she would try to stop him, but her efforts were futile. With a single strike, he severed her hand. He did not bother finishing her. His true prey was the Exile. But once again, they escaped. Aboard the Ebon Hawk, they fled the station just as Crossfire triggered a chain reaction. The explosions consumed Peragus and engulfed the Harbinger. The destruction was total, but Sion did not perish. He could not. Where others found death, he found a resurgence. Amid the wreckage, his eyes burned with a single purpose: to find Mitra Surik and end. The Lord of Pain followed the Exile's trail across the galaxy with relentless determination. His Sith assassins reported her every move as she traveled from planet to planet. First Talos, where she had thwarted the plans of Darth Nihilus in the Telos restoration. Then Dantooine, slowly rebuilding after the Sith bombardment, where the ancient Jedi enclave lay in ruins. Sion watched from the shadows as Surik sought and found Master Vrook Lamar. The pursuit continued to Nargada, the smuggler's moon. There, Surik had drawn too much attention, attracting both the Exchange and Goto with her activities. Her encounters with Master Zeskael had strengthened her connection to the Force, something Sion perceived as a growing disturbance. Surik's determination to restore her lost connection to the Force fascinated and enraged Sion in equal measure. On Onderon and its jungle moon, Dexun, Surik had interfered in a civil war, supporting Quintalia against her cousin Vaklu, who had allied with the Sith. The ancient battlefield of Dexun, where the Exile had fought during the Mandalorian Wars under Revan's command, allowed her to find Master Kavar. With each Jedi Master reunited, Sion felt her power grow, and, paradoxically, her threat. What intrigued Darth Sion the most was Kreia's constant presence beside Surik. Kreia, his former master, once Darth Traya, the woman who had betrayed him, who had tried to show him weakness when he sought only power. Seeing her protect the Exile stirred immeasurable rage in him. Why would Kreia sacrifice so much for someone so weak when she had rejected him, who embodied the very essence of Sith power? Finally, Korriban presented itself as the perfect stage for their confrontation. The ancient Sith homeworld, steeped in darkness, would strengthen his powers. When Sion sensed Surik's arrival at the ruined Sith Academy, where he had slain Jedi Master Lona Vash just an hour before, he knew the time had come. He ordered the Academy's doors sealed and sent his assassins, not to kill her, but to test her before their meeting. When he finally faced the Exile, Sion studied her directly. He had researched her, immersed himself in her history, her role at Malachor V, her exile, her years wandering the Outer Rim. He knew her scars, both physical and those she carried in the Force. In a way, they were reflections of each other, both broken, though in different ways. Sion warned her about Kreia, about how she would eventually destroy her just as she had done to him. The ensuing battle only deepened Sion's intrigue. Every blow Surik landed was met with instant regeneration, his iron will refusing to accept death. It was not a fight she could win, something Kreia finally communicated to her through the Force. As Surik fled the Academy, Sion, impressed by her skill and determination, ordered his assassins not to harm her. For the first time in a long while, he felt something beyond pain and hatred. Such thoughts represented an unacceptable weakness for a Sith Lord, and like all weakness, it had to be purged through hatred. Thus, as Surik dominated his thoughts more and more, Sion transformed his admiration into deeper hatred, convinced their next encounter would be their last, and that meeting would not be long in coming. The Lord of Pain felt a disturbance in the Force as the Ebon Hawk approached Malachor V, the war-torn planet where his existence of pain had found purpose. He sensed the ship crash against the cliffs, suspended above the abyss of the planet's fractured surface. Surik had finally arrived, just as Kreia had foretold. His alliance with Kreia, now Darth Traya once more, was uncomfortable but necessary. She had returned to Malachor V after manipulating the events that led to Darth Nihilus' destruction over Telos. Sion remembered how Nihilus, the third member of their Sith Triumvirate, had fallen to Surik and her allies, unable to consume the void she represented in the Force. Now, only he and Traya remained. waiting in the depths of the Atreus Academy for the final confrontation. When Traia arrived at Malachor, she had once again bent Sion to her will, subduing him with her power while ordering him to show respect to Zurich upon her arrival. Sion's hatred seethed beneath his shattered skin, held together only by his will in the dark side. He studied Zurich's past obsessively, fascinated and repulsed by her decision to turn away from the Force after Malachor. He found her beautiful, a thought that enraged him, for it threatened his grip on the pain that kept him alive. As Zurich fought her way through the Academy, eliminating the remaining Sith assassins and the Triumvirate's forces, Sion waited in the depths. The confrontation seemed inevitable. When they finally met, the Lord of Pain warned her to leave, that Traia would break her as she had broken him. In his twisted logic, Sion believed that if he eliminated Zurich, Traia would have no choice but to accept him again as her true apprentice. The battle that followed was brutal. Every time Zurich struck Sion down, he rose again, fueled by the dark side's power flowing through Malachor. But with each fall, Zurich's words cut deeper. She revealed that Traia did not respect him, that she used him as a tool, and that she only respected those capable of abandoning the Force, not those who depended on it as he did. After being defeated again and again, understanding finally dawned on Sion. His life of pain was not power, but perpetual dependence and weakness. Zurich's true strength lay in her ability to exist apart from the Force. In his final moments, Sion warned Zurich about Traia, confessing that the Exile was Traia's weakness, just as she had been his. With these words, the Lord of Pain finally released his grip on life, letting the pain fade. As his consciousness faded, Sion perceived the fate awaiting Malachor. The mass shadow generator would reactivate, finally destroying the cursed planet. And though his body disintegrated, something of Sion's essence lingered among the surviving fragments of Malachor, whispering through the Force to those sensitive enough to hear. A persistent echo of the Lord of Pain who once defied death itself.